Ladies and gentlemen, I'm Handsome Dick Manitoba, and you are in Manitoba's Wild Kingdom. I have a very special guest coming into the kingdom today. A woman who is a member of the Crystals, Bobby Sox and the Blue Jeans, the Blossoms, a phenomenally talented solo artist, a film star. She was in all the Lethal Weapon movies with Danny Glover. A Broadway star. She starred in Leader of the Pack, celebrating the music, life, and times of Ellie Greenwich, and an author. My name is Love, the Darlene Love story. About my special guest, Darlene Love, the New York Times said this: Darlene Love's thunderbolt voice is as embedded in the history of rock and roll as Eric Clapton's guitar or Bob Dylan's lyrics. Here's another great quote. As a performer, Darlene was and is one of the best kept secrets in the history of the music industry. And as a person, Darlene is one of the most tenacious individuals I've ever known. Even though she has lost a few rounds in life, she's won the fight. That was Sonny Bono. Darlene Love, I love you. Welcome to Manitoba's Wild Kingdom. How are you today?
Thank you. This is great. This is truly a wild place.
Well, this year, again, you've been nominated for induction into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. If I did my homework correctly, it's the third time you've been nominated.
It's the third time, right.
Being the host of a radio program, everybody talks, you know what, about Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. It's great, it sucks, it's this, it's that. Everyone, that's actually what I like about it, is that it gets emotions going. People have opinions. I'm sure you have your own opinions.
Oh, yes.
Sure.
Oh, I do.
All right, let's start. Who do we hate? Come on. So,
no, it's not so much that I hate. What I have, you know, we all have our opinion who we think should be in. For the first 10 years, I guess the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame was there. It was like, it was okay. And it was, you know, I was still busy working for everybody. But then as the years started going along, I started saying, why aren't I in the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame? So when I did the first Lethal Weapon, all the people that were involved in the Lethal Weapon, the producers, everybody got together and said, you've never been nominated? And I said, never been nominated. So they all signed a petition. This was back in 1997. That's when I first got my first nomination. They all signed this petition and sent it in, and they put me on the ballot. Now, here we are all these years later, and I've been nominated twice, last year and now this year. So now it's 3 times, and it was because the big push that we did in 97 with the producers and the director and everybody from Lethal Weapon movies. And then I started saying, yeah, I need to be in I'm supposed to be in the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame.
What would it mean to you? Why would it be so important on a personal level? What does that mean to you, getting
Personally, the reason why I think back in the years when producers like Lou Adler, Herb Albert, all those people didn't have any money to record people like the Mamas and the Papas and all that stuff. And I was with a group called the Blossoms. And we did background vocals for all these people for years because they didn't have any money. They would always say, you know, doll, y'all just give us one more hour. You know, we'll pay you, you know, and we were making like $10 an hour as it was, you know. And we would say, okay, because I do believe you're supposed to help your fellow artists or your fellow producers, and it will always come back to you one way or another. You put good out, good will come back. And for all the years that I worked on everybody's records from you name it, you know, and I figured I have given to this business. That's the biggest reason why I think I should be in the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. I've given everything that I've ever had or ever wanted or whatever it meant to my life. I've given my life to this business. And most people wouldn't say they gave their life to this business. I say I gave my life to this business because there was a time in the first end of 70s into the 80s where nobody would hire me. So I had to go and find a job. So I did day work, just clean houses, you know.
You just answered 12 of my questions. That's the
sorry,
problem.
I jumped ahead.
No, I'm sorry. Go ahead, Darlene. You go. They want to hear you talk, not me. Go ahead. Go ahead.
Well, you know,
the interview is now over.
It was really a hard time. It was really a hard time. But then I said, you know what? I looked in the mirror one day when I was cleaning, and I said, this is not where I'm supposed to be. I'm supposed to be back in the music. Where I became a solo artist, That was even harder because I wasn't really a Crystals. I was recording their records for Phil Spector. I recorded He's a Rebel, or Do Run Run, He's Sure the Boy I Love, but I was not a Crystal. So I was not getting the publicity or the good from having hit records because I wasn't known as those people.
So as a kid, you were like a teenager or in your early 20s in the not that I want to talk to a woman about her age. I know you're not so I know that's rude, so forgive me, darling. But
it was the early 60s.
When you were in the Blossoms, because this is a very common thing in the music business. It's like I can just see a bunch of teenage girls sitting around going, "We got a gig. Yeah. We got a gig." It's like, "Are we getting paid?" People didn't ask you getting paid back in the early 60s. Like,
that's right.
We got a gig. We're going to be famous. That's what counted, right?
That's right. And when we started doing this television show, Shindig, we ended up, I'm jumping ahead of your questions again.
Go ahead, darling.
Well, one thing leads into another.
Keep going. Well, I did my homework well, in other words.
Well, because we worked with so many people that we loved and I never thought I'd meet. I mean, just the whole idea of working with Sam Cooke was mind-blowing to me. I was like just out of high school, and I did one of my first records with Sam Cooke. So that was, and we did a lot of records for people who weren't stars or didn't become stars because you have to have a hit record to become a star. So we worked night and day for producers who were never successful. So you never hear about all those hundreds of people that we worked for over 20 years. You know, you just go do a session, you stay there for 3 hours, you go and do the next session over and over again. Along the way, we did meet a lot of people who became successful. I mean, just the fact that Sonny and Cher, come on.
That, you know, Darlene, that's why I love the documentary they did on the Funk Brothers, because everybody knows the 1,000 Motown hits, and there was a machine behind there, and the machine was made up of a bunch of people who had names. Right. So when they do a documentary like on the Funk Brothers, it makes me so happy. And that's why on my radio program, and I know my pal and my boss, Little Steven, loves when I do research and talk about people that made this music happen.
Right.
Not just the people who get the glory, who are standing up in front.
It's not that little Steven is pushing me so hard to be in the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame, just to be pushing me to be in the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. He believes it, and he was there, you know, 26, 27 years ago.
He lived through your work.
Exactly. Exactly.